tell you when it officially shows up on my phone. But anyway, guys, I think we're actually here. It's been our day of technical glitches, but I think we've got them resolved. Whew, let's see. And 3 people are waiting in our waiting room for this to show up. So
really?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So to the 3 people who are waiting, thank you oh so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for waiting. Sorry, we're a bit late.
Thank you for waiting.
Yes, and we are officially live. I watched it start. So fabulous. All right. So today we are talking about how we can learn a language on our own, which I think is a really interesting topic because the 3 of us are all from such different backgrounds on the subject. So I think the answers to these questions are going to be amazing. And if you have any questions you would like to ask us, go ahead and write them in the comments. And we would love to know where you're watching this from. So tell us in the comments, and we will be super excited to hear that. So today, the first question that we were asked is, can you learn a language by yourself? So, that's intriguing. Joe, what do you think?
I think you can learn a lot of language by yourself, definitely. I know, I think there are plenty of people that I know who've studied a language at school or in a class and haven't made really great progress. But then, you can learn a lot about a language by yourself from these days. There's so much on YouTube, and there are really good books around and podcasts and lots of really great advice. So you can actually learn a lot, I think. But I think the only thing you can't do by yourself is speaking. Like you really, at some point, you're going to need somebody to talk to. So that's my one thing. That it doesn't mean you don't necessarily need to be enrolled in a course, I think, to do that. But you do need to find some speaking partners, because unless you practice speaking, then it's just going to be in a textbook, and you're not going to get very far, I think. So that will be my thing. Absolutely, there's lots you can do without being enrolled in a course or in an official program. But yeah, find some people to speak to. Yeah, that's what I think. What do you reckon, Jessica?
For me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, for me, it's a very interesting topic because I spend a lot of time doing it. But yeah, the difficult of being teaching by yourself is like it's more difficult because you don't have a teacher or someone to keep track of, and you don't have accountability when you are studying by yourself. Also, the motivation, like you don't have, like for example, in a classroom, you don't have other students that could motivate you and tell you, yeah, you are doing right, good, or this way is the good one, this is the bad one. And so it's also difficult to know when you are doing mistakes or not. So it's a little bit challenge, but with persistence, yeah. And if you stick with your goals, that was key for me. Like for example, my goal was to come to Japan. So I have this persistent goal that will make possible for me to be persistent, to continue ongoing in my journey of learning language. So I think this is very important when you are learning a language. But yeah, it is possible because I made it, and if I made it, someone else can do it. Right?
Awesome. So, I totally agree that you can learn a language on your own, but it's more difficult. And I think that there are 2 things that are very difficult if you're studying on your own. Number 1, you don't get the corrections that you would get if you were in a classroom setting. So you don't always know if you're speaking correctly or not. You don't get that feedback. And the second one is there is more to speaking a language than knowing the right words. There's an art to being able to explain, to get around when someone doesn't understand you or when you don't understand them. And you really only learn that art through practicing with live people who are not people who speak your native language. It only comes from speaking with people that don't speak your native language. So you can't, if you're learning Spanish, you can't you can't only practice with people who speak English. You have to speak with people who speak Spanish and do not speak English to learn how to really do that communication. So I'm going to throw a little wrench in our plan. I have another question related to this because I'm really curious, and I hope you guys are okay with it. Have you found any ways around the gaps that you see in learning on your own? For example, I use a program called Hello Talk. And Hello Talk lets you pair up with people who are native speakers of the language that you're learning and who want to learn the language you speak. Mm-hmm. So for me, I've been using it with Spanish, and only Spanish because on the free version, you can only choose one language. On the paid version, you can choose 3. And so I've made some friends who have the same level of English that I have of Spanish. And we talk, and that keeps me motivated. That motivation you talked about, Jessica, getting messages from them and forming those friendships has really been key for me in keeping the motivation up. Classes didn't, I can't succeed in a traditional classroom. I can't learn a language in a classroom. I get discouraged and frustrated and angry. And it also gives you that correction, and those skills when they don't understand you. Okay, how can I explain this differently? What is another way to say this? So Joe, do you have any workarounds, any ways that you found to get around that? I think that you have a great solution for English learners for how they can get around it.
Well, sadly, I only have a great solution for 50% of English learners. Because, and that's exactly the thing. Because I have a lovely women's speaking group, which is fantastic. And it's called Sisters Speaking English, and maybe some of the sisters are watching us. Yeah, and it's fabulous because we connect, and you are 100% right, Janet. You have to have that interaction. Unless you're talking to somebody and getting feedback, you're never going to know whether your pronunciation is good enough, or you don't have to have perfect language to start communicating. But until you actually speak to someone and find out if they can understand you, that's when you're really testing your language. And I think you're right. You don't get that opportunity. It's the best way, to me. I think it's absolutely the best way to improve your language, especially speaking. But you don't get that in a classroom, because in a classroom, your teacher will set you up and go, okay, well, today we're practicing buying bananas, and everyone has their little script and they practice doing one particular thing, but that context might not be something you need. So you need people to talk to, and you need things to talk about. And like you said, Jessica, motivation, like you need to be people to keep you accountable and keep you that you want to talk to. And as soon as you make friends and you have to speak to them in English, then or whatever your target language is, it really helps you to develop and to be motivated to improve, because you get that feedback straight away. You might not get the feedback, did you put the plural ending in the right place? You won't get that really tiny grammatical feedback, but you get that basic level feedback. Can this person understand me or not? And I think that's really important. So you're right.
Is.
Yeah.
So Jessica, you're also helping people to get past this gap, right?
Yeah. So
So
for me,
tell us about that.
yeah. For me, it's like there's something that you always like. You don't think about it when you are talking about learning by yourself. Yes, it's the misconception of yourself because they think that because it's yourself, you need to do it alone. But a language is communication. It's a communicative behavior. So what you need not to be like, don't feel like because you are learning by yourself you need to be in a room in front of a book. You need to communicate, you need to talk, you need as you said, Janet, you need to look for a group. As Joe said, you need to find a place in which you can interact and use these communications, all this knowledge. And I think start changing that mindset and start thinking like, okay, learning for myself, but you need to also to say, okay, I will try this in order to improve in what I'm lacking, for example. So this kind of mind setting is very important when you are learning by yourself, because you don't have the motivation factor, you don't have other people that is correcting you, and also to
Right.
have a clear plan on when are you going to study. Also, you need to be consistent doing a time in your day in which you spend to make all these activities of communication. I think this is it.
Mm. Yeah, I think we're going to talk more about routine a little later, and I'm really excited about that because that's something that I struggle with. I don't
Mhm,
have a good routine, and I think that I would be learning much faster
mhm.
and much more easily if I could get a routine.
Yes.
So I'll tell you something that I found to get around, and I've just discovered that in the last couple of weeks, and that is TikTok. There is a feature on TikTok that you can use. There are a lot of people that teach English or teach Japanese or Spanish or even Arabic. I did one in Arabic today. Um, and they'll say something and then they'll leave a space on their TikTok, and you can do a duet or a stitch with them, and you can record yourself answering them. It's super neat. It's super fun. It takes a lot of bravery though, because you're gonna screw up a language in front of everyone that watches you on TikTok, and that's a little intimidating. But I found it pretty fun. I've been doing that with English, or not with English, with Spanish and with Arabic here and there on my TikTok. And I've been making TikToks with spaces for people to practice English. And people seem to like those. So I'll probably be working on that a little bit more. So I'm
Clever, Janet.
curious. Huh?
You're so clever.
Actually, I can't take credit for it. There's a Spanish YouTube channel, or not YouTube channel, TikTok channel. And she ended all of her TikToks with, now it's your turn. And so I thought about that and I started answering her. And then I was like, why am I not doing this? I teach English.
Good point. Good point.
So, yeah. All right. If you're watching this, because we have comments from Teresa. She's watching us from Krakow, Poland.
Oh.
And she said she retired last year, so she has free time and she's learning English for fun. And she has a lot of opportunities for learning on her own thanks to the internet. And we've got Renetta here from Brazil.
Oh,
I think she's one of yours, right, Joe? Is she one of yours?
They're both mine, but you can share. They're
I
lovely.
wondered where Teresa came from. Awesome. So I'm curious, if you're watching this, have you found any ways to get around the obstacles to learning on your own? Type in the comments. We would love to hear them. Our next question is how to start learning a language by yourself. Joe, what advice do you have for people on this?
So we're thinking for absolute beginners, is that right? So if you're just
Yes.
absolutely beginning, I think you totally, you have to start by making sure you're listening to lots, and don't worry if you don't understand a thing. So watch some TV and just try and get the sound coming in. But definitely starting with something like Duolingo or one of those sorts of really easy step through. They give you the most basic sentence structures for grammar patterns and some really simple vocabulary. So matching something like Duolingo for just getting your basic structures starting, but then try to also find some vocabulary that's relevant to you. I know you guys talked about Duolingo in your last thing, but for me, the big thing with Duolingo is it teaches you things like the turtle is drinking milk. And it's like, that's not helpful to me. So absolutely. Why? My son was trying to learn Swedish one day and he was going, why? I don't care. So it's absolutely very, very useful for simple grammatical information and structures. It's very useful for basic vocabulary, but you need to supplement that. So add something to it and put in some vocabulary that you like. So that's useful to you. So I would start there. Listen a lot to get used to the sound of the language, songs, movies, TV, whatever, and try something like Duolingo just to get started with creating basic.
Yeah,
what do you?
That's awesome. Yeah. Jessica, what do you think?
To start learning, okay. First of all, I think, as I said, you need to choose your goals. For example, if you want to speak for a native, as a native, or if you want to speak with a native speaker, then maybe you don't need to focus too much in reading, in writing. It depends on the goal that you have set and you are pursuing, that you need to focus more on certain things. For example, I have some students of Japanese that want to find a job, but they were just making some kanji repetition every day. And I said, but you need to speak more than write kanjis. You can use the computer to write the kanjis, right? So you need to first, I think, to choose your goal and then create your plan in the for these long and short goals. So you start to move towards them. If you don't have anything like to review every a few weeks, every month to see your progress, you maybe feel a little bit frustrated because you think that you are not going anywhere. So this plan and these goals are very important when you're starting to learn by yourself. Also, as we talk about, to create that habit and spare some time every day is very important. And also, you need to pick a good book to learn a language. So for that one, I really recommend. I mean, thank God we have the internet. So I think you can just type best books for blah 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 language, and there are a lot of blog posts that are very true, that review books, and they're very very good, I think so. But also another tip is maybe you can go to Amazon and you can look at the reviews in Amazon of the different books, so you can find a book that could guide you in the target language that you are going to learn.
That is a great idea. And just so everybody knows, next month's chat is going to be about books to use to learn languages. So we'll be helping you out on this.
Yeah.
Since our last round, Renetta said hello, Joe. Elizabeth Rondon from Colombia is here. And Hasser Muhammad gave us hearts and flowers. Which is very sweet. Thank you.
That's very kind.
So,
Lovely.
similar to Joe, I absolutely think the language learning apps are a great place to start with basic vocabulary. Duolingo, Memrise. There are lots of free games that you can download for your tablet, for your phone. They may only have a couple of subjects on them that you can learn about, a couple of topics, but they're free and you're starting out without any knowledge, so everything's helpful. So those are good. One thing that I wish that I would have started doing a lot earlier is listening to people reading books for kids. Because
Definitely.
even though I'm able to have good conversation, my listening and my reading skills are super low compared to my speaking and my writing. And one of the reasons for that is I didn't ever do anything to really get basic sentence structure that you find in children's books. So as I learn the languages that I'm working on now, Chinese and Arabic, I'm at a very beginner level. I'm watching little cartoons for kids and trying to find stories like Little Red Riding Hood on the computer that people are reading to you. So you hear it, you see the words, and I think that's something I wish I would have done differently with Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see. Teresa says, when I started learning many years ago at school, I had only a book, but the book didn't speak at all. So speaking was the hardest challenge for me. Teresa, I totally agree. Totally agree. That is really, listening and speaking are the weaknesses if you learn from a book. A book is not enough on its own.
You're not alone. Not alone.
Not alone.
No, absolutely not alone. So one thing that the three of us talked about quite a bit when we started this topic was the difference between a foreign language, a language that you don't have any way to really encounter in your daily life, versus a second language, a language where maybe you've moved to a new country, and so that you're in that language every day, even in some way, shape, or form. Maybe your TV is playing in English because you're in America, but your native language is Spanish. So this question, our next question, is how to learn a foreign language on your own. So a language from a language that it's not easy to be exposed to. You're not living in that country. You're not living in that culture. Joe, what tips do you have for learning a foreign language?
Definitely. Well, just I think, as we've discussed, find ways to find people to interact with, find people to talk to, even if it's text messaging and chatting. That interaction is important, but ideally actually having conversations is so important. But one thing really quickly I wanted to point out too is when a long time ago, when I was studying language acquisition and how we acquire language and all of that at university, and there was such a big focus on this difference between learning English or learning as a foreign language when you're not surrounded by that language all the time at all, and learning as a second or additional language, because a lot of people I know, English might be their fifth language or sixth language, but learning as learning an additional language, but you're in that environment. And I always thought, oh yeah, that's a really different thing, because people who are, so of course I'm an English language teacher, so I'm always talking English, but for any language you're learning, if someone is living in New Zealand or the US, Australia, for example, and they have the opportunity all around them to hear English, I always thought, okay, great, well, that's a different thing than learning as a foreign language. But I think we have to recognize that that's not actually true, because with some people, and particularly women, I'm afraid to say, often they might be living in an English speaking environment, but they are still mostly surrounded by their first language, and they don't have a lot of opportunities to interact and to communicate in English. And it might actually be really terrifying for them to go out and find native English speaking friends. Some people are fabulous at that and they find it very easy. And they just go, great, I'll go and get some first language speaking friends, and off they go and they join groups and clubs and they talk to everybody they meet. For some people, it's not that easy. And I mean, Jessica will know this as well, probably from living in Japan, that some people do that very well and some people just feel very isolated and still mostly just speak their first language. And I did, honestly, when I went to Thailand when I was 22, I did such a terrible job. Everyone wanted to speak to me in English and I just let that happen. I didn't practice as much as I should have because I felt shy and I was nervous I would make a mistake. And even though I was living in that country, I didn't use English as much as I should have. So my main thing is, no matter what, find someone to speak with, find ways of interacting and surround yourself with the language. And with the internet, you can do that. Whether you're learning as an additional language or as a foreign language, you can listen and hear and surround yourself and connect with people, no matter where you are.
Yeah,
absolutely
true, Joe, because when I now that I'm here in Japan, I have met people that have been here for 10 years and they don't speak Japanese because they surround themselves by English speakers because they couldn't they didn't feel like because their job maybe as an English teachers or other type of job that you don't need Japanese, they felt like it was not required. And I'm so surprised that after 10 years, they haven't learned the language. But I think it's also something related to the interest and maybe the motivation there, right? But yeah, it's true what you said is so true.
Sadly. And me too, I'm ashamed to say. But I was only 21 or 22, so I wouldn't do that again.
I think I've been learning Spanish off and on for 20 years. Wow. And the reason that my Spanish is still just at like a low intermediate level is that I didn't have the courage to actually speak to people. Yeah. And as I've gotten the courage to do that, my Spanish has really grown. And I've noticed one thing that I found, several people that I know have lived here and been, like you said, Joe, people that really just left their lives immersed in their target, in their initial language, and didn't really break through that fear to speak English. Some of them have been using programs like Hello Talk and other language exchange programs to find one safe person, get some confidence, and then they can start talking to people in their community. Yeah. So they found that to be a good bridge, I guess you would say.
Well, the fear can stop you to do things, right?
Yeah, it really can. It really can. Yeah. So Renata has left a comment. I'm trying to think in English all the time, but my mind returns to think Portuguese again, and it's difficult to control this. And I told her I do the exact same thing in Spanish. I try to think in Spanish, but it is really difficult. Your mind just naturally goes back to the language you're comfortable in. And I've noticed, which may or may not be related, when I started learning Spanish in my 20s, it was much easier then to think in Spanish. And it is much more, it takes a lot more concentration and work to do that now that I'm 40. I don't know if that's normal. It's just something I've noticed. And yes, I am 40. I don't look like it. I certainly don't act like it. But I am actually 40.
We don't like to act our age, Janet.
Yeah.
No, what's the fun of that?
No.
Definitely going back to your, like, the language that you feel safe is something that always happen. But for example, for me was key that I was in a language, even when I came to Japan, I was in a language school, but I was surrounded by students. As I always say, when I came, I thought like in this language school, I will be surrounded by Japanese wanting to learn Japanese. It was very silly. So when I came here, it was like they are all foreigners and they are from different countries. We don't, none of us speak Japanese. And you're like, oh my goodness, it was like 6 months in the program and I couldn't speak a word. So I started to getting worried because I was saving playing speaking in English. I was just with the foreigners that were speaking in English, but because the Spanish speakers were very few, and
Mhm.
then I realized that it was not working because I was playing in the safe, right? The safe play. And then
Uh-huh.
that's when I decided to go as a waitress. So definitely what you are saying is like you need to push your boundaries. You need to challenge them and be in an environment in which you don't have another choice
Right.
but talking that language. So
Yeah.
yeah, super important the boundaries and go above that.
And I think the secret to that is knowing that you're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing that screwing up in a language is part of how you learn. It's normal, it's natural, it's going to happen. And knowing, okay, when it happens, I'll take a deep breath and I'll go on. That's the skill that I didn't have that kept me from speaking all those years. I was afraid of making a mistake, not understanding, being embarrassed. But that's a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal, it's natural. It's not comfortable. I don't like it,
No.
but it's totally normal.
Yeah. You definitely just have to get comfortable with that. There's no doubt about it, because until you're comfortable with, yeah, because I was like that. I was so shy and I was like, oh, and really worried about if I pronounce something wrong, and it's, especially in Thai, because it's a tonal language, so you can say completely the wrong word by getting the tone wrong, and I was so worried about that.
Oh
But even
no.
the worst one ever was when I went to France for 3 days, to be fair. So I didn't have a long time to practice. I had 3 days in Paris. It was wonderful. And I couldn't say anything. I was so worried about how to conjugate my verbs and whether I had the right pronoun. And I was so worried about the grammar, because I'd only ever studied French from a grammar book and grammar classes and trying to get 100% in your grammar test. And I couldn't speak because I was so worried about grammar. Who cares? It's not
Right.
so, yeah, it can really slow you down. Really slow you down.
I really, really can.
Yeah.
And speaking of speed, our next question, we're going to combine two. How long does it take to learn a language by yourself? And how can you make that go faster? Joe, what do you think?
I don't know. I think Jessica should answer the first one of those questions, because Jessica knows exactly. How long will it take to learn a language, Jessica? What do you think? I'll answer the second half, eh?
So sorry, as long as you are persistent, as long as you have your goal, you can do it. For me, it was from since I was 16 years old, and I can say I could start speaking when I was 29 years old. But it was because it was in a foreign language. I was not surrounded by foreigners, and I didn't have a clear goal on how to achieve that. But yeah, it clearly depends on the person, right? It depends on you, how much time you are ready to devote, how fast are you learning a language. If you have your goals, if you are increasing your vocabulary, if you are doing all these steps to keep improving day by day, if you think that one day this language will come to you and say hello, I'm in your head
Yeah,
now, it's not
yeah,
possible, right? So it depends on each person, right? From my experience and learning Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as well, the other really important thing is to go, well, what are you trying to achieve? When you say, how long will it take you to learn a language? What do you mean? Do you mean so that you can go down to the corner shop and buy some milk and, say hello and how's your day going? And, pick up your kids from school and say, oh, hello, have you had a good weekend? Is that what you're trying to do? Or are you wanting to do a PhD in that target language? Because, or run business meetings, or it really, there's a huge range of language proficiency. And even for some native speakers would also have to work quite hard to develop their language proficiency to a level to do really high level academic study or to public speaking. So it depends on your goals too. I think that's the thing.
Yeah. So one thing that I think makes you learn faster is very simple. The more time that you spend getting input that's at a reasonable level in your target language, the faster you'll learn. If I spend 5 minutes a day learning Spanish, I'm going to learn slower than if I spend 5 hours. If I take more time, and it has to be things that are at a level that's appropriate for you. If I watch the news right now in Spanish, my listening may benefit a little just in being able to differentiate, but not much because it's so far above my level. But the more time that you spend putting input into your system, the faster you're going to be able to put things out.
Yeah.
And that's just, and
for me,
and there's some different ways to do it, but what were you saying, Jessica?
Yeah, sorry, about faster. I think for me, what was key that I start to feel that I start learning faster Japanese was that I exposed myself to it, that I went as a waitress, that I went beyond that fear. That was the time when I realized I I I'm going really in the pace that I wanted to go, because I was restraining myself. So if you you cannot learn faster, right? So for me, that was key. Sorry, to go faster.
For me, I think one key was I was really struggling with listening. Listening has really been a problem for me. It's still a problem for me. But there came a point where I recognized that the things I was trying to listen to, even in conversations when I was having my language exchanges, were so far up here, so far beyond my abilities that I wasn't really gaining. And so I kind of went backwards and I looked online and I found a site that helps you learn, or not learn, but improve your Spanish listening. It has something that they're reading to you. It has the words and the audio there so that you can just listen to it. You can listen to it and read it. You can look up words in the dictionary if you need to. And that helped me to learn more quickly because it was workable. It wasn't so hard that I couldn't do it. And some of the people that I chat with in Spanish recognize that what it's like to learn another language, and they take their level down of their level of speaking down to what I can understand. Actually, Elizabeth is watching this, and Elizabeth is really good at lowering her Spanish level to something I can understand. Thank you, Elizabeth. But some people haven't really talked to foreigners a lot. And so they're using their slang and their regional dialects, and they're speaking quickly, and they're not enunciating their words. They're not speaking clearly. So making sure if you're going to immerse yourself, that you immerse yourself in something that's helpful and not just frustrating is good.
Yeah. That's a real common, a big thing of language acquisition theory as well. There's a guy, Krashen, who this was his main work was all about the idea is your number one thing you need is comprehensible input. So
Yes.
meaning input that you can understand. Because we hear so many people go, oh, I've got to read this book and it's got lots of hard words, so I'm going to learn a lot. But you're not going to learn your grammar that way. You're not actually going to remember the vocabulary because your brain is so much under stress that you forget everything you're learning. You absolutely need, like you say, Janet, you must find things to listen to. And that idea of listening and reading at the same time is fantastic, especially in English, because our spelling system is so appalling, so terrible. Our spelling is so bad that you might have heard you might hear a word and you go, I don't know that word, but when you see it written down, you go, oh, I know that word. But or vice versa. Maybe you've read a word, but you've actually heard it lots of times, but you didn't recognize it because the writing and the spelling system is just awful. So sorry about that. If you're trying to learn English, it's not my fault, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, we didn't create it.
Awful. Yeah. it's so bad. So yeah, definitely listening and reading at the same time is really, really helpful. And making sure that you find that input that is the right level for you. And that might be, there are fantastic resources online for that, fantastic, that people have created that are at lots of different levels. And there's a really, my favorite one is Breaking News English, if you're trying to learn English, because it takes it down to quite basic level, but then, okay, read the same article, but bump it up a level. Read this next article, say same article, next level up. So there's lots of different levels and it just gets a little bit harder. So you can start at the easy one and kind of get the meaning, and then you can bump it up a wee bit. But yeah,
right.
Really good advice.
And Jessica, you do this, right? You have resources on your Japanese group. You have resources for people to do this, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I'm doing like a weekly like workshops, conversational workshops in Japanese, in which they can come together and speak freely. I'm always encouraging them, don't be afraid. This is your time, this is your momentum. Use this space so you can start practicing Japanese. If you don't want to speak still with a native speaker, you can practice here with other students. Yeah, definitely. I have been trying to create that environment for them without fear, a safe environment so they can learn Japanese.
Oh, is that me? Hold on a second. I think that's me. Decline. Sorry. So Jessica, you've also got audio resources. I think it's on your website that you showed me, right?
Yeah, I have also been recording some news from Japan that I think are topics that are that you can talk every day, because one of the things when you want to speak with someone is you need to have a topic of conversation. For example, when you go with your friends, you always have topics of conversation because most likely you have the same things that you like. But when you are with a foreigner, how are you going to find a topic in which you both want to talk about? Well, this is for example, the news, right? TV programs, but you need to learn them in the language that you are targeting, so you are able to immerse in the language and having a topic of conversation. So I create these files in my website so you can listen to actual news of Japan. So whenever my students talk with or find the Japanese speaker, they can say, "Oh, I heard about this." So if you feel like that, if someone comes telling you, I know that this is happening in your country, they will also feel motivated to reply back and start a conversation with them, right? And maybe they will feel safe
Yes, that's
Nice.
awesome. So we have one final question, and actually, I'm going to ask not only the three of us, but I would love the people watching us to chime in on this. Renetta was just saying that she studies English every day, and I was curious. I would like us to talk about routines, how we can put language learning into our days, and strategies like that. What the two of you would recommend, and what our viewers that are watching would recommend. By the way, one has already answered. Speaking in English is his or her name on YouTube, and he or she said persevering, investing time and effort. I think that's a very smart answer.
It is.
Not giving up, keeping going. What do you think, Joe?
In terms of a routine, I think the first thing is you have to be realistic and kind of think about how much time you have available, because it's a big job. It's kind of like a big black time hole, learning a language. You could spend all day, your whole day. So try and work out how much time you have, and a little bit regularly during the day. So if you've got time if you're on a bus or you're out somewhere, you go, oh, actually, I can spend 10 minutes just doing some vocabulary revision. So look at what time you have available, including things like, oh, well, if you're waiting at a bus stop, or if you're traveling, or is there something you can do on your phone that might help a little bit just to revise something? So some tasks you can absolutely do while you're out and about. So try and make the most of those times. But look at what's available to you with your opportunities, and look at what time is available to you and match those things up, because you might need to prioritize and go, actually, I need to practice speaking, so I'm going to make some time. I have some amazing women in our group every now and you go, hang on, isn't it 3 o'clock in the morning? I go, yeah, but I wanted to be here and practicing. So,
oh, wow.
which is so fantastic. The women in our group are from more than 50 countries and so many time zones. So, sometimes I forget, and we'll have a group of women, and some are in South America or the US, and then some are in the Middle East, and then you suddenly go, hang on, someone's in the Philippines. It's really late, and you have to decide what's important and prioritize. So decide what's most important, and the thing that you really need to work on, if you just have to kind of fit that in around. I've been getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning one day a week too. Oh, ouch. So as does Jessica. So prioritize, and you can't do that all the time, but you have to be realistic, because they're thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go to every available thing and I'm going to do hours and hours every day, because you will burn out. So just work out what time you've got available and try and get a nice mix of some things that are practicing, focusing on your grammar. Sometimes you're focusing on vocabulary. Sometimes I'm going to really practice my conversational speaking with someone. So try and get a nice balance of different activities and space them out during your day based on what time you have available. And if you only have 15 minutes available, great, use it really well, and don't beat yourself up. Don't feel bad about it. Just use the time you've got, use it well, and kind of adjust your goals accordingly. Because if your goal is you want to get 8.5 in IELTS, but you only have 10 minutes a day, you might need to have a think about that.
It's really realistic, right? Your goal.
Yeah.
Right. Jessica, what do you think?
About the routines. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good at that. I think I can give credit to my routine and my persistence. Is one of the characteristic in me. But I think whenever someone is learning a new language, they have to have a routine. As Joe said, if you want to I don't know, to be able to speak, but you just spend 5 minutes learning one kanji, it's like it will be very difficult, right? So to tell you the truth, I have heard many times that they say put or create a schedule of your week, write it down, block that time. It makes a difference, and it really makes a difference from take it out from your mind and put it in something. I use a planner, a physical planner, because I like paper. Maybe you can use something now in internet, but you need to schedule your study hours really clear within your day. In fact, when I was studying here in Japan, I was always asking my teachers how much hours per day I need to study at home. And they told me the same hours that you spend at school, you need to spend the same hours learning outside the classroom. And I was, oh my goodness. Like, I mean, I think it was too much. I couldn't come up with that pace. But what really helped me is finding which time of the day was I was more able to get all that knowledge inside my head. I have talked about that in the previous lives. Like, you have a biological clock in which you know at which time of the day you can learn more. And so put that time in your schedule and make do your day around it, not the other way around. I think
Yeah.
you need to prioritize. If that's a main goal, for me it was a main goal because I was in a situation that I learn. So I start to make all my activities around that time and always make sure to keep that space of time available for me to keep going, to look for the books. But if I many times I look for books, I look for good resources, but I never was able to use them because I didn't have the time. So definitely making the time, make it a routine, make it something in your life, something that becomes naturally to you. Like, okay, will I go to party, or I should study my language? So you need to take, if you make a routine, you take that decision easily to study the language that you are targeting.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
Oh, I just noticed a comment from Renetta that I didn't see. I am so sorry. She said, my Spanish improved a lot when I started to watch Mexican series every day with a lot of love and people crying.
Very handy.
Yes, Mexican dramas are they're a whole different thing. But you have to be careful. I tried to watch La Casa de Papel in Spanish. Um, wow, it was so hard.
La Casa de Papel.
So hard. I think for me, I need to watch shows for small children in Spanish for a while before
Yeah.
I try dramas. Maybe animes.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
animes would be the next step up for me. Once I finish with children's, step up to anime because then there's a lot to see,
Yeah.
and then try the rest.
like listening to things you don't understand at all, it's quite good for your kind of feel for the language and for the feel for the rhythm and the pronunciation and the intonation and how it sort of comes and goes. So I think it can improve your speaking somehow, but you just have to be able to go, it doesn't matter if I only understand 20%, and just
Right.
relax and just listen to the feel of the language and feel good about it. But yeah, as soon as you start going, I didn't understand,
Freak out,
totally
freak out.
counterproductive. So,
No, it was too high.
yeah.
And then I talked to people because La Casa de Papel is recorded in Spain.
Mhm.
And I talked to people from Mexico and other Spanish speaking countries who also said it was very, very difficult to listen to because they talk very fast. They use words that are more common for criminals. So maybe not words that I would be using in Spanish.
Yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
you
you
shouldn't
never
be talking
know.
like that, Janet.
Yeah, probably not. So I'm glad that I chose not to use this particular show. Oh, Teresa said, I attend English Zoom classes with Joe, listening to songs with lyrics written on the screen. And when I'm tired, I listen to pronunciation and playing bridge with my computer at the same time.
Oh, wow. Multitasking.
Teresa's a great
Fabulous.
multitasker. Teresa's awesome.
Amazing.
Wow. That is amazing. Teresa, maybe I'll try that today. I'm cleaning my house to get ready for Halloween decorations. So maybe I'll try to put some Spanish listening on as I do my cleaning. Thanks for the tip, Teresa.
Yeah, amazing.
Definitely. It's pretty cool.
Oh, Renetta says, English school online on Saturday morning, speaking clubs online like Joe, watching everyday English series with English subtitles, cleaning my house, listening to podcasts or YouTube lessons.
Wow,
Renetta said the same thing. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, I'm trying it tonight.
It's commitment for you.
Yep.
And
I'll
it's the
report back in the
advantage as well
text.
of the great thing about retirement as well. Having this is a little extra time. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, but no, those doing fantastic work. Really, really good. Great.
That's amazing. All right, so I think unless you guys have some other questions, that is it for us for today. Our next live Zoom or live YouTube like this will be on November the 30th. We're going to talk about learning languages from books and different topics within that. So if you have questions about that topic, you can always let one of us know. You can talk to Joe in the group. You can message Jessica or I through our YouTubes. There are links. I already put them in the chat. Jessica and Joe, you'll have to check and see if I missed anything. I've got a link for Joe's group for learning English, Jessica's group for Spanish speakers learning Japanese, Jessica's YouTube, although I'm not sure I put the right one, Jessica.
Okay,
Jessica has two YouTubes, one in English, one in Spanish. And then I have a link for my TikTok because clearly you know my YouTube channel because you're here. So let's see what comments we have real quick before we go. Teresa said, we're welcome. Renetta said, yes. I want to specifically thank those of you that replied in the comments for being engaged with us. That is fabulous, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, people.
Thank you.
It's very great to have you here live. It's really nice. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you, everybody. We will see you on November the 30th, same time, same place, talking about books.
Okay. Thanks, guys.